so wrong. Lord, heaven above, I'm only human.
Hey guys, welcome to the Anime Kun. In this video we will know about Calgurio's meeting with his subordinates. Spoilers ahead, so watch out. Subscribe the channel for light novel chapters. So, now let's start the video. 3 days after the resurrection, Calgurio and the others finally calmed down. It was hard to say how much the resurrection through the hand of the demon lord had impacted them, but they had finally accepted the reality. The next question is about their position in the future. To this day they still live in tents, and food is regularly carried by magical creatures, and no one complains even if the bearers are skeletons. The tents were arranged in a hilly area where the grass and trees had withered away, and although the scenery was poor, the cold and warmth was pleasant and unexpectedly a suitable place to live. The scent of death wafted through the remnants of the battlefield, and rows of gravestones of the dead stood. Such a view would not matter if one was used to seeing it. After all, the guys who were supposed to be lying in the tomb were out and about, and it was even stranger to be afraid now. That is to say, in terms of life, there is no great discontent felt. It was said that this was the 7 levels of the labyrinth, and the one in charge of the narration was the necromancer who guarded this level, calling himself a Dalman. Some of the generals had actually fought with him, so no one doubted the veracity of this narration. Adalman was very good at taking care of people, and Calgurio and the others were not slacked off as captives. Since we, the god, Lord Rimuru, have raised you, I will do the will of God, and you are not a man who has gone against your will, so take your time and think about how you should spend this second life. Adalman said so, leaving them free for Calgurio to roam. Run away from the class, none of them say so. Because they had come to their senses and entrusted themselves to the gods, they decided to trust in the demon lord, Rimuru. Calgurio held the same opinion, as he was sure that even if he did run, it would only end in failure. It was because of this that he decided to accept honestly what Adalman had said and called the subordinates to a meeting. Nearly 100 officers were gathered in the large tent used for military meetings. Among them were senior officers and the Empire's premier heroes. Only these people, nowadays, have also lost their power. So, guys, let me begin by thanking you. Because of my incompetence, I am sincerely sorry that I have caused you such suffering. Calgurio looked around at the group and lowered his head when he finished. And to his words, there was a unanimous negative opinion. What are you talking about? Those of us who did not stop you are also guilty of the same sin. The adjutant finished and the staff officers nodded together. Senior officers were also unanimous in saying that it was not the responsibility of Calgurio. The attitude is most evident in Krishna. My opinion is the same as everyone else's. It is because of the folly of us, etc., that has angered the gods. And yet it is through God's great mercy that the opportunity for atonement is obtained. Krishna regarded the matter of imperial aggression as a sin in itself. Calgurio thought, indeed, how foolish it was, in retrospect, to believe too much in one's own force, to despise one's enemies too much and not bother to understand them at all. Calgurio sneered to himself. Thinking that his companions were in the same mood, he smiled again as if relieved. Thank you. I'm more or less relieved that you can say that. I swear to God, this is a feeling I will never forget for the rest of my life. Speaking of the divine moment, the figure of the demon lord Rimuru flashed in Calgurio's mind. Yeah, to me, the god of the moment is His Majesty Rimuru, right? Even back in the Empire, there would be no place for Calgurio. All that awaits him is the tragic end of being held accountable for his defeat and directly executed before he even goes to court-martial. Although Calgurio had no intention of avoiding responsibility at all, this second life was given by Rimuru, and Calgurio was not going to waste it casually. Well, you can take your time about that. The current Calgurio was no longer the same vulgar person who had acted only for his own status and desires before, so the thoughts in his head rightfully put his own affairs on the back burner. Then let's get down to business. I have brought you all together today to seek your views on how we should proceed in this matter. His Excellency Adalman has graciously granted us the freedom to gather together and deliberate, and let us use this time effectively in order not to waste it. After Calgurio brought up the topic, the people present looked at each other and after looking at the others, the discussion began. It is inconceivable that such a state of affairs could have occurred at the original military conference, but for Calgurio, who wants a practical opinion, the present situation is welcome. The discussion went on for some time. Then, roughly divided into two opinions. The one who advocates that they should just be subservient. There is also a section of people who advocate that they should go back to the empire. The two opinions are tit for tat with no one in particular. Both sides are understandable, and it's only natural that people with families would advocate a return to the empire. However, the ability to return to the homeland depended on what Demon Lord Rimuru had in mind. It is possible that permission may be given for future dealings, but any disorderly conduct is likely to cause displeasure to the Demon Lord. As His Excellency Adalman said, there is no intention of executing us at will, but we should still be prepared, because it does not mean that we are spared. Since his life had already been saved by the Demon Lord, then the fate was already in the Demon Lord's hands. While a certain amount of freedom is allowed, it is not known how far it has come. No matter what, the only thing that awaits us back home is execution. Even so, I still want to send the soldiers who fought for their country back to their homeland safely. I would like to speak frankly to His Majesty Rimuru and ask for his mercy. That said, they're about on par with hostages, so the question is whether the country will pay the compensation. At this point, Major General Minute, who had been listening in silence to everyone's talk, slowly opened his mouth to speak. It's impossible. After all, we didn't even expect to lose. Because our own attitude towards the enemy has always been ruthless. Hearing this, everyone was silent. The Empire never accepts results other than unconditional surrender, and it is the continued winning that gives rise to imperial arrogance. But now that they are fighting with all their might, they are completely defeated, and if they are not forgiven, they are completely at their own peril. Everyone is well aware of this fact and knows that even back in the Empire there will never be a bright future. Even so, they want to do something for those who have families. Major General Minute is right. What exactly is the Emperor's holy will? I didn't want to say it, but this time it was an oversight on the part of the Intelligence Bureau. They don't even want to think about it. How many Demon Lord level monsters are there here? One of the officers, off the cuff, said the last thing he should have said. Hey, you guys, watch what you say. It doesn't matter what happens to the intelligence services nowadays. You're talking about all kinds of monsters, but you're a big man in this country. I'm sorry, it was my mistake. While free speech was welcome, there was no magic in the room. There had been no sign of His Excellency Adalman since yesterday, and Calgurio thought he presumably had gone somewhere for a meeting. That's why it was decided to hold a military conference today, but not everything can be said. Still captive in the end, that must not be forgotten. Although His Majesty Rimuru is generous and kind, he will not let others insult his subordinates, so please don't forget that before you speak. Calgurio gave a warning about the way he spoke, and the officers agreed. At the very least, it is enough to understand the dangers of the Demon Lord Rimuru, to be able to take those who use the great magic such as gravity collapse into his ministry. Why didn't the Secret Service get a clue about such a dangerous man? I very much understand your desire to scold them for slacking off, because I want to scold them too. Calgurio thought silently. However, someone suddenly threw a cold shower of water on Calgurio and the officers. Are you stupid? Listen up. The intelligence services already had a certain amount of information at that time. Bonnie, who had been silent until now, said with a sudden smile. No way. Why, then, not inform His Majesty of the correct information? Those guys, did they betray you? Everyone faltered at Bonnie's words, and only Minute and Calgurio remained calm. The first to speak was Minute. Your name is Bonnie, right? As I recall, you were given an infiltration mission that even we weren't told about, right? Calgurio said next. Well, as a single-digit man, it's not surprising that you have classified information that we don't know. So, what does the intelligence community think and what exactly does it want us to do? As soon as this question was thrown out, everyone looked to Bonnie. Either one wants to know the answer. Intelligence Bureau is absolutely loyal to His Majesty the Emperor. It was inconceivable that they would betray, that is to say, Emperor Rudra could have predicted the current situation. Bonnie snorted, looked pityingly at the Calgurio, then dropped a bomb with little energy. As you may imagine, His Majesty the Emperor knows all, and even your defeat has been foreseen. How? How could? What do you mean? His Majesty sent us when he knew he would lose. No way. How dare you insult His Majesty like that? The officers were in chaos. However, some of them have also scratched the surface. So, in other words, are we abandoned men? That's not quite right, Minute. Your Majesty's purpose, I'm afraid, is, shut up, Calgurio. The responsibility for leaking important state secrets rests with me. You're all dead people, including me. So this is not a betrayal of His Majesty. That is, Bonnie's awakening. Now that he has lost his power as a single digit, even the Emperor's borrowed supreme power has been taken away, but he still wants to be the one to show the way for his subordinates as a superior. Bonnie. I'm sorry, Ju. I, for one, am not so loyal to His Majesty. I followed his command for one reason only, and that was that I could not beat him no matter what. That, too, is what Bonnie meant. That's it for this video. Subscribe the channel for more light novel chapters. Meet you on next video.